everyone. I hope you're having a great evening. It is Tracy coming to you live from Golden Dog Adventure Company, and I am here for a conversation we want to have with you tonight with our esteemed veterinarian panel discussion. It is to celebrate Responsible Pet Awareness Month, which actually was in February. This is actually a holdover, but we're celebrating that month a couple days late. And you might remember we came to you live last year, myself and Dr. Emmons, to talk to you about N.O.M.V, Not One More Vet, and to share some information with you about this wonderful organization and what it's doing to help the mental health and awareness for veterinarians. Dr. Emmons is associated with the New England chapter. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we did last year and just kind of bring everybody up to speed on what they've accomplished over the last year. Also, what we're trying to do is fundraise for this awesome organization. So we'll be sharing that link with you too. We welcome any donations, small or large, that you're willing to donate. We'll tell you how those funds are used as well. And then what we want to do for the majority of this conversation is have a discussion with you about things that veterinarians wish pet parents knew. It'll give you some really good information to help you increase your relationship with your veterinarian, as well as give you a chance to ask questions of things that may be burning. Feel free to shoot them out to us and we'll get as many questions in as we can. So thank you, all of you, for joining me tonight. I really appreciate your time.
You're welcome. No, pleasure.
Be here.
And I thought what we could do is let's go around. Would love for each of you to introduce yourselves and your company so everybody's aware. I know you're all local veterinarians, and probably most of the community is familiar with you already. But if they're not, I want to make sure that they are. So, Dr. Emmons, why don't we start with you?
Thanks for having us, Tracy. So I'm Shannon Emmons. I own Eliot Veterinary Hospital in Eliot, Maine, very southern Maine. So we're almost in the New Hampshire community. But I'm a small animal general practitioner and I'm doing my residency in veterinary behavior. So I also see behavior patients on a referral practice. What brought Tracy and I together was Not One More Vet and talking about that. I'm on the board of directors and run the education committee. It's been excellent. And I look forward to talking about it.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. Emmons. Appreciate having you here again this year. Dr. Boyer, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, my name is Dr. Lisa Boyer. I'm a veterinarian. I do predominantly emergency and critical care as well as some general practice throughout New Hampshire and Maine. I also do private case consultations and work closely with performance dogs and people interested in canine fitness and purebred dogs. So that's
awesome. Thanks for being here, Dr. Boyer. And you might recognize Dr. Boyer also runs our Ask the Veterinarian series. Dr. Wells, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi, everybody. Nice to meet you guys, too. Dr. Emmons and Dr. Boyer, nice to see you guys. I'm Hannah Wells. I have Veterinary Wellness Center, which is an integrative veterinary practice in Exeter, New Hampshire. Dr. Emmons, I share a case with you, I think, just the other day. I don't remember the name, but I do share a case with you. I was pleased to see that.
Quite a few.
Yeah, quite a few. So thank you for that. You have incredible write-ups, so I appreciate that. Anyway, so we are in Exeter, New Hampshire. We do, we're really integrative medicine, although I think a lot of people view us as holistic, but truly, honestly, integrative. So we do general practice and then have a specialty. My specialty is in traditional Chinese medicine. So acupuncture, Chinese herbs, lifestyle, also certified in rehab and sort of trying to get that piece of the practice going as well. So nice to meet you all.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Dr. Wells. And you might remember a couple of years ago, Dr. Wells did a nutrition class with us. And anytime you see pictures of my dog Dakota with needles stuck in her, that's Dr. Wells' handiwork. So great to have you guys all here. I really appreciate it. So before we jump into the discussion, Dr. Emmons, I want to talk a little bit more about Not One More Vet with you. Just to update everybody, the mission of N.O.M.V is to transform the status of mental wellness within the profession so veterinary professionals can survive and thrive through education, resources, and support. Can you tell us a little bit about why this organization was established? I know it's not very old, and what kind of support they've been able to get and give over the last several years.
So yeah, we are relatively new, recently established as a nonprofit. I'm hearing an echo. Are you hearing that?
I did briefly. Yeah, I guess Dr. Boyer and Dr. Wells, if you don't mind muting yourself, maybe it's coming from some bounce back. There we go.
Yeah, we are a recently established nonprofit. So I graduated in 2017, and even when I graduated, N.O.M.V was largely just a Facebook group, and we were doing GoFundMe pages to try and raise money so that people could have inpatient therapy or ketamine transfusions or whatever it may be. Sometimes it was just a hotel to get out of a house, or a bad situation. And over the years, we've seen it grow into this really huge organization. There's thousands of members of N.O.M.V, and it encompasses veterinarians all around the globe. It's not just veterinarians, also, it's veterinary support staff, it's veterinary technicians, it's anyone in the industry. We now have a bunch of amazing programs that help to either provide education. So my committee, that's talking about like having speakers, having people come in from N.O.M.V to talk about what we do, or to give mental health lectures, or I've gone to hospitals that are having a hard time and talked with them about what they can be doing. But we also have programs for like practice wellness certification, and we have support grants for people who can't afford their bills or can't afford therapy. We have access to therapy. We have N.O.M.V's list, which is telling people all of these resources. So every year, I mean, it's grown exponentially. It's really quite amazing to see, because we're constantly working on something new. We're working on our N.O.M.V like conference right now, which is going to be hopefully a big veterinary mental health conference. And I don't know, I'm sure we'll come up with, we were talking the other day, like all of these things of like, oh, how do we get these resources together for, like I was talking about dog bites, and then someone was talking about like vets going through domestic violence, and like having all of these little packages to be able to make sure people have the resources they need. We'll see. We'll see where the road takes us for sure.
Well, and it seems just based on what you've discussed, you've come so far just in the last year since we last talked. So that's wonderful. Is membership growing in the local area?
N.O.M.V New England definitely has grown. We have started to branch, because Dr. Tasha Wilson and I, who were kind of the first people up here, were very local. And we started branching into Massachusetts and Rhode Island, and then letting the other parts of New England come in too, not just New Hampshire and Maine. We actually are going to be at the Rhode Island Vet Tech Association meeting. I think it's like next week. We've got a meeting coming up at MVMC in Scarborough. So we're kind of we're getting our people all over New England, which is excellent.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you to you and everybody who volunteers their time and supports this organization to just support the industry as a whole. It's way overdue, as I know you and I have discussed. So it is fantastic to see an organization on a national level, on a local level, doing so many great things. So I'm glad we can create, some additional awareness about it. And, maybe this is what we do every year. We have our N.O.M.V, time of year. We talk about it during Responsible Pet Owner Month, and just bring you, the latest updates, keep pushing awareness, raising funds, whatever we can do to help certainly this worthwhile organization. So appreciate that.
Thank you for caring about it.
Absolutely. Yes. As I know our community does as well. So again, thank you everybody for joining us. If you're watching on the replay as well, stay tuned, because you've got a lot of great information that we're going to be sharing with our veterinarian panel discussion tonight about what we wish pet parents knew. And this is really going to be a great discussion. I know there's a lot of information out there. I feel that can be shared to really help strengthen the relationship you have, as a pet parent with your veterinarian. There's a shortage of veterinarians. If you are not aware of that, then you've probably been living under a rock. It's a stressful career path, as you're well aware, and it follows what follows you is a mound of debt, which leads into the rates and the prices we pay our veterinarians because they need to make a living. They need to pay this mounds of debt, which as I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, research says that to attend veterinarian school is actually more expensive than becoming a medical doctor. Isn't that correct? Yeah. I thought I had seen
Can
some
be.
research about that.
It definitely can be. I mean, I think by way of comparison, I've been a vet for 22 years. I'm getting old. When I went to veterinary school, my tuition was $10,000 a year. It was a $40,000 degree. Not bad by today's standards. Easily paid off. Today's vets are graduating with 350 to 500,000 in debt, and they can't live on what most people would consider a moderate salary.
I just do not understand that exponential growth. Is there anything behind that why it increased so greatly?
Tuition rates at colleges. I mean, bottom line, it's what the colleges have done. I mean, I have children going to college now, and I look at what their tuition rates are, and just for undergrad, and then the grad schools are prohibitively expensive beyond that.
Yeah.
So it's just, I think life is expensive and things have increased. And I don't know, Shannon, what you paid, or Hannah, what you paid for vet school. I mean, I consider myself really lucky with in-state tuition and 40,000, and I was able to pay that off in a few years with careful living, but most people can't do that.
I paid, it's a long time ago for me, more than 30 years ago. So for me, it was trying to figure out what school I could go to, right? And I was coming from Connecticut at the time, who doesn't have a vet school. So it was trying to play that game of where you could get. And then, honestly, I came out of school with some pretty good debt, but I got quite a bit. I applied for every scholarship under the sun, every grant under the sun, and did fairly well. But I think it is pretty oppressive right now, the amount that these vets are paying. I don't even know if they can even afford to pay the interest on their loans, let alone the base of the loan. So at some point, are they forced to default on their loan? Can they not, secure a home because their debt to income ratio is too high? And then that causes problems for those of us who are trying to hire associates or other veterinarians. The amount of money that I'm having to pay another veterinarian to come in is more than, as an owner, maybe Shannon, you can appreciate this, more than as an owner that I pay myself. But it's I'm not going to pay myself the same at 30 years plus. I'm not going to pay myself the same as I will a new graduate. But that's the way it is. And it just is what it is. And if I don't want to work by myself forever and burn myself out and not be able to sustain for however many more years, then that's just what it is. And I think we just have to accept that this is our new sort of landscape. and hence makes the large, the increase in prices for our clients, which is probably some of the pushback that we get, which then, leads to some of the distress that veterinarians are feeling.
Well, I think Dr. Wells and Dr. Emmons, you are both, I know Dr. Emmons, you're trying to hire right now. Dr. Wells, are you still trying to hire, or were you successful in finding someone?
I have been very, very, very fortunate and have hired. And so I have a couple of part-time veterinarians who I'm so thrilled for and so grateful for. And then I did just hire a new graduate who will start with us in July. So doing everything I can to make our environments both, a fantastic mentorship place. But, I think a big role in hiring that new veterinarian was the culture of our practice, and obviously the financial piece that goes without saying, but the culture of the practice, and, having so many of our competition who are corporate practices to private practices are offering mental health awareness and mental health support and all of those things. And it's so important to these new graduates. they know something that we didn't know at the time. They are putting value on that, which I think is appropriate.
And I think too that I'm getting some feedback. I don't know if you guys can mute.
Actually, it looks like, yeah, we're getting try again and see if we get any feedback.
I think one of the other things too is increasingly in our profession right now, there's an overwhelming number of practices that have sold out to corporations that are not privately owned. And unfortunately, when we talk about corporate medicine, and I'm not going to, I'm not bad mouthing anybody. They're, our colleagues are amazing, but as these practices are gobbled up by corporations, the corporations have one bottom line, right? I mean, they want to turn as much profit as they can, and they have resources far beyond the individual practitioner. I'm sure, when we look at what starting salaries are for new grads and stuff like that, I mean, it's more than some of us make that have been out 10 and 20 years. And it's because the corporations can afford to absorb that. And, they get extra benefits by being, by buying in volume, for example. So, we see a lot of complaints from people who say, oh, well, my vet charges X number of dollars for this prescription, but I can go on Chewy or on this and that and get it for $3 less. And my vet is a money grubbing vet because they're charging more than Chewy. Well, oftentimes Chewy is charging you more or less than what we pay for the medication and keep it in stock for your convenience. And so I think people need to understand that from a financial perspective, look, everybody needs to earn a living, but that's not the primary motivation of the vast majority of veterinarians. Most of us are empathetic. We love animals. We love people. We want to help you with your pet's health, but we have to stay in business and we have to pay staff a living wage. I mean, until a couple of years ago, vet techs were earning, less than what people were making at McDonald's. I mean, that's not fair to them and they can't sustain a living. And so, the cost of everything has gone up. I mean, I know, I just paid my plumber for an hour of his time way more than I would charge a client for an hour of my time. And so, it's all relative. And I think people need to understand that, the corporations can afford to do things more cheaply. There are excellent veterinarians who work for corporate practice, but it's not that we're money grubbing. And I think that's one of the biggest things that offends me as a veterinarian is, when somebody finds out I'm a vet, and I don't like to even tell them I'm a vet, the first thing I hear about is, the money, you charge so much for this. I just paid X number of dollars for this procedure or that procedure. And it's really offensive. And it's frankly, it gets old, so I think that's something people have to understand. There's a value for our education. I mean, we do surgeries that, medical doctors don't do. I mean, we have to know it all, and we need to be paid appropriately for those services and education.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring that up. And before we continue, I just want, if anybody has any questions at all, we're really on a great discussion here. I know there are people out there that have questions about why their vets are charging what they're charging. Please ask your questions. This is a great opportunity to get them answered. Because one of the things that I learned, which I praise Dr. Wells and her staff for implementing this, and I don't know if there's other veterinarians that have done that. What people don't know is if you're ordering your meds on Chewy's, yeah, they're most likely cheaper. But what you don't know is that Chewy has to call your vet to get authorization. And usually that takes 15 minutes, half an hour, just depends of their time when they could be helping another customer to chase down the information that Chewy needs. Chewy's just sitting there on the phone. They're not doing anything. So there's ways around that. You can pick up a prescription from your veterinarian, then you can send that to Chewy, saving time on your veterinarian's part. So if your veterinarian says, hey, we're going to have to start charging for chasing down those Chewy, prescriptions on our end and confirming them for Chewy, I get it. I mean, we're in business to stay in business and make money. Same here. I'm not a veterinarian, but, I'm always looking for ways to keep the doors open. So I don't know, if any of you want to talk about any new strategies that you've put in place to kind of fill in some of those areas where you're losing money and that people just might not be aware of.
I mean, I think people need to know is like, if I have to phone a prescription into a pharmacy, and anyone who's done human medicine business at a pharmacy knows lately since COVID, it's been a nightmare. It takes an average of 15 or 20 minutes to phone a prescription in per client to a pharmacy. It's a minimum of that. And so for me, phoning a prescription, and if I have to do that on 5 patients a day, that's 2 fewer people or 3 fewer people I can see in an office. And so, and I get no compensation for that. And so, you know, we understand people need to save money, and I respect that, but I would much prefer to hand a written prescription and let you deal with where you want to fill it. That saves us a ton of time and money.
Yeah, agreed.
If I can add to that, Lisa, is that also having the convenience, that for your patient, you want them to get that pain medication right away. So therefore, we stock an inventory. There's money on our shelves, and there's many times where I might have something that I might need once a year, but I'm not going to not stock it. Your dog, maybe ate a sock and I want to induce vomiting. There's a product that I might have on my shelf that I might need, not very often. It goes out of date very quickly. It has to get compounded. So that, and I'm not an ER, right? So I'm not seeing it as often, but when I need it, I need it. So I need that product on the shelf. In addition to that, we are also paying for the space to store all of that, the time for an employee to order that and manage the inventory and check the prices. In addition to that, I don't think people realize all the equipment that's required to run a hospital where, we're essentially running a full hospital ER in every small practice. So we have X-ray, we have blood machines, we have fluids, we have tables, all of it. We're outfitting an entire hospital, not just a pharmacy. And again, I think to you guys' point, we don't buy in bulk because then there's a lot of money sitting on our shelves, for which sometimes, at the end of the year, those products are out of date because we had it for that one patient that didn't need it. And I do think that people don't realize that also when they buy from Chewy, they don't necessarily, Chewy's not going to take back that product if your dog didn't eat it or didn't want it, and clients, I don't always understand that you buy something from your veterinarian, you have a way of not necessarily mitigating that, but having a discussion about how that product is best used. And so people will often, buy something from Chewy and yes, that's only $2 or $3 to the client, but you multiply that times 100 clients. That's, a staff being able to get $1 or $2 raise. So
yeah, that's a good point.
It makes a big difference.
And Hannah, I think those are all excellent points. And I think that also that when you purchase a product from a veterinarian, if there's a problem, for example, if you have a dog that, took heartworm prevention and you purchased it from your veterinarian and I can show that that dog has consistently filled that prescription and been given that prescription and the dog gets heartworm, we're going to go to bat for you with the company from that product to pay for that treatment for that disease because that product should have an inherent guarantee. Chewy cannot and won't do that for you. So I think that or if you have a drug reaction, we can go to bat with the company to get those costs covered, where Chewy will not do that for you. There's no help for you when you buy online or even at a human pharmacy if you have a problem with the product.
But I think
not all products are created equally too, because, I remember Dr. Boyer, you and I have had conversations about Seresto and things like that, and people purchasing knockoffs on some of the online places versus getting it from your vet. I mean, that can just lead you down a rabbit hole that you might not be able to come back from.
No, absolutely. And you buy your stuff on Amazon, that's fine. They're not a pharmacy, but I'm talking about using legitimate pharmacies. I mean, Chewy has a legitimate pharmacy, as does, as your local pharmacy or Costco or whoever else you go to. And I don't begrudge anybody, if you have an expensive medication that, you're giving every single day for a pet's life, it adds up. I get that. But, but in general, for some of those other products that maybe aren't chronic usage or, it's as much as you can support your local vet, it would really help mitigate. And like you said, Hannah, give people $1 raise when they deserve it, or be able for us to do things for the staff.
I don't think pet parents, if we're asking, if the conversation is about what we wish they knew, if we're talking about this particular piece, that their purchase of, again, we're not money gouging. We're trying to provide a pharmacy as convenience. And a lot of times that's a lot of record keeping, right? With some of the controlled drugs, that's a lot of extra record keeping for us and a lot of extra time. But at the same time, if we have a slightly higher markup than perhaps Chewy, it's because we are supporting our staff, we're supporting the equipment, we're supporting, we're not just, because the reality is for that surgery that we did, that would be equivalent in human medicine, perhaps a neuter or spay, there's no way we can charge really what that's worth, because no one's going to pay that. So we have to think about it and make it up in slightly other ways, in little tiny ways, because an ovariohysterectomy or a canine spay, and if you had an ovarian hysterectomy as a human being, your charge for that is going to be significantly higher than what any veterinarian will ever charge for that. And so that has to come, it has to come from somewhere else in little pieces. So again, not begrudging anybody from reducing their costs as much as possible. And honestly, as veterinarians, we are probably the worst offenders. I mean, that the charging should be taken out of my hands, because almost every single solitary time I'll be like, oh no, don't, because they have to do that again, or it's going to cost them too much, or I can't tell you how many times in a day, and I know you're all nodding because it's all what we do, how many times in a day we are very conscientious about how much you're spending for your pet. Whether can we do with that blood panel instead of this one because it's a little less expensive, and maybe I don't need that test, I just really need this to help, or I can try to find a generic, can I find something? So we're always conscious of how much it costs, and because we ultimately, our bottom line is we want to help, and if you can't afford it, then we can't help you. And so that's truly, I think 99.9% of veterinarians, all we want to do is help. And if that means that we can find a cheaper alternative for you, we're going to do it.
Well, and Dr. Wells, weren't you the one who turned me on to GoodRx?
Yes.
Yeah, and I saved quite a bit of money going through that program, getting some of the medications for Dakota, because she's on a wealth of different things for the problems she's experiencing as a 15-year-old. So can anybody talk a little bit about that and the benefits of using that?
You have cost of the GoodRx sometimes will work and sometimes won't. It depends on the pharmacy. It depends on the drug. You can get also Mark Cuban has an online pharmacy called Cost Plus Drugs. And sometimes if a generic is on there and it's on there, that can be done that way as well. And those are definitely a more inexpensive way. It's up to the pharmacy whether to accept the GoodRx. In our area, Hannaford's is really excellent at discounting pet drugs. And they're easy for a veterinarian to deal with. I'd say CVS and Rite Aid are probably the worst. And don't you think? CVS and Walmart and Rite Aid.
Walmart was pretty good. They actually took my GoodRx card. I was surprised, but they did take it.
But I think it's more to the point that, yes, I can turn you on to those other, I think people should know that, to Lisa's point, we're not money hungry. Like, we're going to turn you on to those other solutions, whatever they may be, when it's possible. So we would love it if clients, when we are giving you a prescription and maybe it's $2 more than what you would get at Chewy, you kind of just go, okay, not that you accept everything, but you don't get so stuck in the weeds that, we're trying to, destroy you somehow. We will do our very best to give you the best price that we can for what we're trying to accomplish, and give us the benefit of the doubt that we're coming from a good place, not a place of trying to cause you angst or increase your costs beyond what we think is acceptable.
Agreed. Well, before we move on from the money portion, I just have one additional question. Can you talk to our audience at all, Dr. Emmons, let me know if you have any feedback on this, about payment plans that vets offer, care credit card, what type of resources are out there for people who might be struggling to pay their vet bills? Are there any websites out there? I know that, Elder Pet here in Durham works with seniors and low-income individuals to help with costs. Are there any other programs that you know of too that we can share?
Yeah, there's quite a few of them popping up. I actually have a phone call with one next week that I'd never heard of before. But veterinary care is expensive. So how do we mitigate that? Like Dr. Wells was just saying, we're suckers and we just want to help people. And as a private practitioner, I have thousands of dollars in payment plans that people have not paid me back. And it makes me really not want to do it again. You know, it's, you feel bad because, I mean, obviously we're all very empathetic people and we want to help. And, you know, like there's this woman who lost her job during COVID, and she, you know, was found a part-time job, and she didn't have the money, and she had 2 bulldogs, which are not cheap dogs. And so I took on so much of her costs and was like, pay me back, pay me back. She packed up and moved to like Iowa, and I haven't heard from her, and she owes me like $2,000. You know, it's like, it's these people that, like, I had known her for years. So you think you know someone, you think you have a relationship with someone, you think they respect you or care about you, and then they don't. So weird that veterinarians don't want to do payment plans.
So you mean you'd rather save pet lives than be a debt collector? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, something like that, I guess. So, you know, how do we get around that? Care Credit has been around for forever. There's a new program called Scratch Pay, which is very similar. Some practices have it, some don't. And there's different grants. There's like the AVMF has fundraising grants for people that they can apply to. Some of the local humane societies will take on cases. Sometimes it's a matter of like surrendering too, which is awful, but it's, you know, like, does your pet suffer or does your pet get the care it needs? And it's a hard balance because that's obviously not what any of us want. There's also pet insurance. So that's becoming very big. You know, some of the bigger companies like Trupanion does direct pay with some of the hospitals. So, you know, you're at the ER, your dog, you know, ate something it shouldn't have. You have a $5,000 surgery and your insurance pays 90% of it up front. So you just, you know, you pay the few $100. That's the rest of your deductible. And so that makes it a lot more affordable on our end. Though then we get into also like, are we becoming human medicine with insurance? And is that raising costs? I don't know. Probably that's a whole other issue. But there are a lot of options around for payment. And, you know, I think don't be offended if your vet, you know, it's not that we don't care. It's just that, like, I'm a small business and my profit margin's not huge, and $10,000, like Dr. Wells said, that could have gone to my staff. That could have gone to improvement. That could have been the new floors I need. That could be, you know, like, there's so much that could be done with that money. And instead,
yeah,
it's
very good point.
You know, it's gone.
Dr. Wells, Dr. Boyer, do you want to add anything to that as well before we move on?
I think I'd like to talk particularly about emergency because that's my, you know, my forte. You know, in this day and age, very few people can afford any emergency. You know, you need a new tire on your car. You need, you know, whatever it is you need. People are like a paycheck away from, you know, not really being able to make ends meet, if that. And we recognize that. But the problem is that as an emergency doctor, it is very absolute. There is no treatment until there is money on the table. And I don't know any emergency practice that will start treating other than immediate, getting in an IV catheter or oxygen or something, to go beyond that if there's not an estimate approved and payment given. And people perceive that as, well, you don't care about my pet. All you care about is the money. And like Dr. Emmons said, I mean, the reality is that if we did not do that, I would estimate 60% of our revenue would never come through the door. That just would not be paid. A, if the animal dies. B, if they approve an estimate and they don't have the money, even though they approve it. People sign estimates all the time agreeing to pay and they don't. And, and we're vilified for that, but frankly, they couldn't stay in business. I mean, the average emergency hospital, I would venture to say, just to open the doors before we see a client, with just between all the utilities and equipment, you're at $15,000 a day to operate that hospital. And we can't afford to do that if we don't collect the revenue for the services. I think when somebody buys a pet, they need to understand the average cost of one night in an emergency hospital with x-rays, blood work, IV fluids is about $1,500 to $2,000. If you don't have a way to pay for that, whether it's with a credit card, or cash or or you have a credit rating sufficient enough to be approved for care credit or scratch pay, which isn't extreme, but certainly in the 600 range, 580 to 6 or over 580 to 600. If you're not approved for credit from a company, why would a vet take you on as a credit risk? It's not,
Right.
we're not there to be your banker. And, if people complain that they have long wait times at an emergency, or they can't get care, or they can't get care at vet hospitals, well, part of that is because we can't keep people employed long enough because we can't pay them appropriately, and we can't provide the services if people don't pay the bill. And so it isn't that we're about the money. We want to save your pet. It's a very frustrating thing. And I think for me, if an owner comes in and tells me what their limitations are up front and is just straight with me, then I can give them better advice about how to take care of that condition. So I know that I'm going to present them with a $5,000 estimate because maybe they have a bloat or a torsion, and that's probably a cheap estimate. If surgery is not going to be an option, or you just really, hey, I only have $500, what can I do the best I can for my pet with $500? I'm all over that, and I can give you whatever the best options are for you at that point. But don't waste hours and hours of going round and round with all that stuff if you're not going to have the money anyway, or you really don't want to spend the money, or whatever. I mean, I'm not judgmental about it. I'm there to help you and help your pet. But if you have significant limitations, I think most veterinarians would want to know that up front, so we can formulate the most helpful plan for you and your pet.
Yeah, I agree. And pet care is an investment, and you have to be prepared for it. But I found that um, the options with health insurance, pet insurance, have come a long way. There's a lot more companies offering some very competitive plans, with different deductibles and different choices, getting closer to the types of plans you might pick for yourself. So I highly encourage people to do that. The younger the pet is, the earlier you start, the better the plans are. So, for instance, my son is 19. He works part time at Mary's Dogs, and he adopted a dog from there. The dog was 2 when he got the health insurance. It was $360 a year. By the time the first year had come and gone, he had already received reimbursements back from medical care to Dr. Wells' facility for more than what he paid for the annual rate for the insurance. And then, so I thought, okay, he's going to get a huge increase this next year. It only went up $40. So it is such a worthwhile investment. And I highly encourage people to look into it as an option. There is actually a blog post on our website about the top health insurance companies and some options for affording your pet wellness visits and emergency visits. And you can just go to goldendognh.com and go to our blog. So before we move on, I've got some questions here that have been coming in that I want to pose to all of you. Let's see if we can tackle some of these here. So let's see, we've got, just a couple of comments. Very happy to see you all, and thank you for being here to share with us. Here's a question. So, are you required to have continuing education requirements yearly, or do you take educational courses as needed for new care procedures? That's a great question.
All of the above.
I figured you guys must have to, because the industry is always changing, new medicine, new technology.
Yeah. So there is, I don't know about Maine. You guys can speak to that. So New Hampshire just increased it to 30 hours, of which you can't take it all in 1 year. You do have to spread it out so that you can't just be like, oh, I'm just going to one conference in every 2 years and, get all my credits. So I think that was a reasonable change. They did make some other changes to make us a little bit more, especially with some mental health and OSHA and all those things. For me, and I can speak to my own specialty and you guys can speak to yours. So I have that. And then for my acupuncture and Chinese herbal specialties, I'm a geek. I'm doing it all the time. I don't stop. I'm ridiculous. So I also do significant amount of training with that. And that training is not cheap. I'm doing a $10,000 course this year. I've been doing acupuncture for 20 plus years. I'm going to go do another one because I think it's cool and interesting, and it keeps me really engaged and excited. And I would love to learn new things. I'm always doing that. I mean, you guys are probably that way too. I love what I do, and I really enjoy reading new cool things and learning new things. And so I think that's one of the most incredible things about a profession. It's always new. And so, yes, there's requirements, but I think majority of us go way beyond what's required. I don't know about you guys, but
No, I'm in the same boat as you. You know, I mean, I'm trained in acupuncture and Chinese herbs as well, and you know, I have a fascination with just learning new stuff all the time, and I probably do some manner of CE monthly. I mean, it's just
all the
because
time.
you just can't keep up with it all otherwise, and even if you do that, you still don't keep up with it, and the cost of it is high. I mean, the rehab class is 10 grand, you know, and I've looked at that, and I'm like, well, how close am I to retirement? Am I going to be able to get my money back out of doing a class, you know? And I desperately want to go do it, and I probably will anyway. But it's like one of those things where, you know, all of those courses come with significant financial impact to us, but we do it because we want to provide the best service for people, and we want to stay current in our field. And I think most veterinarians have a love of learning. And that's what drives us. And if we don't do that, I mean, if you're practicing the same medicine you were practicing 20 years ago, you're in deep doo-doo. You know, it's not, you just can't survive that way.
No, and it's just really cool.
It is cool.
It's just really cool. There's lots of things that are, you know, things you learn every day. You go, wow, how did I know that? But okay. It's just cool. And I love learning from my colleagues too. So
and from clients, you know, I mean, that's the thing too. Like, you know, I have had clients come in and say, you know, have you heard about blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, is that a thing? And, you know, I don't always trust the Dr. Google thing. And please don't Dr. Google me when I'm in the room. Okay. I just cannot. It's like,
Google says, what do you mean, Dr. Boyer?
Exactly. Like, wait, what about this? No, I've already told you that.
But I think too, to speak to that is that, you know, we are, especially, I can again speak from alternative medicine, or if you're doing behavior or whatnot, you know, you are presented with, because people can find lots of things on Amazon, Chewy, and it's this unbelievable, relentless list of what about this product? What about this product? I'm like, do you know how long it would take me to vet every single product and then tell you that it's, so I can look at the ingredient list and say, yes, those are ingredients, but I have no idea where they've sourced them, how they test them, what's their quality control. I mean, that degree of work is immense to go in and do that. But they don't want the product that you've already done that with on your own shelf. They're going to go look at something else. That being said, the flip side is I have found quite a few products, because clients, if their dog has a particular thing, they've got all the hours that they want to spend on that, their dog, where we're dividing it between many patients. And they do come up with things sometimes that, you know, that you're like, oh, that's cool. That's so I never discount it, but at the same time, it's not a quick answer. Can I use this product? Well, I don't know. I don't want to be rude, but I don't know. I have to like look at it. You know, it takes time to do that. So, but it is very cool and very interesting to continue to learn about, you know, different procedures and products. So whatever we're required to do, I think I can, you know, tend to do a lot more than that. What about you, Shannon?
Yeah, I'm in my residency program, so I have to do a lot constantly. We have rounds every month. We have lectures put on by the college every month. We have to go to the behavior symposium in June. I'm doing a rotation. I'm doing 3 rotations this year. Next month, I have to go to Pennsylvania for an equine rotation. In August, I'm going to Washington for a week for a farm animal rotation. And then we're also doing another farm animal one at Cornell in August too. So I'm going to have 2 farm animal rotations in August. So yeah. And then the other day this lecture came up on like using antacids in dogs, and I was talking to a client about it, and I was like, I should go to that and see what the newest is. And that was what I did at 8:00 at night after I get home from work, and it's constant. And between appointments, we're on line looking up research articles or consulting with our colleagues, calling local referral practices to be like, hey, what should I do about this? What should I, and you're learning new techniques and everything from the community. But I think most veterinarians are, we're going to be putting in a lot of work. And I think Maine's requirements are actually kind of low. Because I do Maine's requirements in like a quarter. But again, it's a little bit different when you're in a residency program. And I think we have new things too, like Dr. Wells mentioned, mental health requirements for CE. We have controlled substances. So you have to do controlled substances CE. I'm talking about like how to recognize diversions or, drug seekers and stuff that like you'd never even think was an issue. So that's important that we have to get all that education. And how else do we do it without mandating it?
Yeah. And if we want to write a health certificate for travel, that's a whole, if we want to be an accredited vet for the USDA. Yeah, I am, unfortunately, but yeah, it's a whole nother, you can send them to me. That's okay.
I will absolutely
We'll have a whole nother level. If I need to write an international health certificate or a health certificate for an animal to travel out of state, that's a whole nother segment of CE that has to be done.
Wow. Wow. Well, thank you for tackling that, guys. I think that blew my mind and many other people's minds, how many, not only the CEUs that you invest in, but to go beyond that, because, the additional learning and knowledge only benefits, the pet parent. So thank you for answering that. A couple of comments here. N.O.M.V is so important and they help so very many. Thank you for that comment. We appreciate that. Corporations aren't necessarily better. I left a small vet office when a corporation bought it because of the attitude, lack of empathy, and general kindness, courtesy. I have to agree there as well. I did leave one that was bought out. Maybe we both went to the same one. Let's see. GoodRx has been a saving grace for Brutus and one of the meds he is on. Agreed. I love Care Credit. Use it with my pet insurance, as do I. It's a great because it's not like health insurance where it automatically pays the provider. You actually have to pay for the vet visit first and then you submit it. Nationwide is great. That's who I deal with, and within a couple of days I get my reimbursements. So let's see. Up until last week, we would take held checks and or held credit card slips for people, and we just stopped that because people's checks and or credit card slips couldn't be processed. Thousands of dollars were going uncollectible. It's awful. We had to stop. That must be someone at another veterinary facility. That sounds familiar for sure.
It's actually illegal to hold checks, I believe. I don't think you can take a held check. That's not even legal. And the other issue, I know everybody loves Care Credit, and it's a good resource when you need it. But one of the things we see quite often is people will come in and do a Care Credit and then dispute the charge, whether it's on that or their credit card. And it becomes difficult. And they dispute the charge because they'll say, oh, we didn't authorize that or whatever it is, or it's fraud. And a lot of times we lose that money, even if it was legitimately charged. And so, from our perspective, I like Care Credit because it's a necessary tool for people to have money that they don't have in the moment. But I don't like it as a practice person because I know how much money we have lost and how many hours I've spent fighting charges that were legitimately given on emergency. And somebody go, oh, well, I never authorized that. And Care Credit will side with them and just, take the money back. And so it is a problem.
Oh, geez. Wow. I hadn't heard of that before, but yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Ugh. Another person said, I was shocked with our pet insurance. With all of the testing we had done for Brutus, they didn't up our rate and gave us $500 more coverage. Like I said, the insurance companies out there are very, very competitive. I've been really, really impressed. All right. So thank you, everybody, for your comments. If you have any additional comments or questions, let us know. We've got about 10 minutes. So I thought in the final 10 minutes, I was just going to ask each of you, what is one key thing, like your favorite of all the favorites list of things you wish pet parents knew? What one thing would you like to tell us right now? Dr. Boria, do you have a top favorite?
Yeah, I think that people need to know that we're people and that our staff are real people. And when you are unhappy with something, and nobody's perfect, come to us and talk to us about it. The social media damage that's done on a perceived problem is horrible. I mean, there are people who are keyboard warriors and will get on and complain about something or start a campaign against a vet clinic or a vet that is really unfair and uncharacteristic. And when you actually look at the reality of what the situation was, that pet owner may be grieving or that pet owner may be upset because of the situation, but it's become pretty vicious over the years. And I'm fortunate I haven't been targeted, but I know many of my colleagues have. And it's bullying, and it causes people to lose lives, and that's just not okay. And so I'm very cautious. If I have a complaint against a business, I take it to the owner of that business first, and I try to resolve it amicably. I don't jump on Facebook or whatever and launch a horrible campaign about them because I'm upset with the business. I mean, we're all people and we're trying to do our best.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that. That's a very good point. Dr. Wells, do you have a top thing you'd like people to know?
I think definitely what Lisa is, I'll piggyback off of what Lisa is saying, is that, we too are human beings, and we do this because we really want to help and we are empathetic. That means we do not have suits of armor. We are, as much as we try to set up boundaries, we do love what we do. And so to be texted by somebody who hasn't seen you in a year and they say that they're your friend, but they're only your friend now because they want to text you a picture of their dog and something that's going on, or, oh, you're a veterinarian, I have a cat who has XYZ. Respect your veterinarian's fact that they're doing a job like an attorney, like a teacher, so they're like an accountant. They are not somebody to approach at a dinner party and tell them about your dog or cat's issue, or your friend's sister's brother's dog's cat's issue. Respect that they have personal time, that they have personal lives. They are going to put 150% in when they're there. And most of the time that's for hours and hours in a day. They don't eat during the day. They don't drink. They don't go pee. They don't anything. They will see you in their lunch because there is no lunch. They'll come in early. They'll stay late. They'll be calling you at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night just to make sure that you have peace of mind. So they're there. Usually 10 hours is not an unusual shift for a veterinarian. So please respect them when they are out and about and in public. They love to say hello and say, hi, how are you? But please do not ask them about your dog or cat or horse or goat or chicken when they are in a non-work environment. Respect that when we're at work, we're at work. When we're not, we are not. And we need to have some balance so that there isn't one more vet.
Yep. Boundaries is the key word here. Yep.
Yeah. Just as an example, I had a doctor's appointment today, and I'm sitting in my doctor's appointment, and I love my provider, and we have a very good relationship. And I'm halfway through the appointment, and this is my time to address my own health issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I just have to, I hate to do this to you, but I just have to ask you. And
they'll do it. They say they hate to do it, but they'll do it anyway.
Now, fortunately, my boundaries are very good. And she understands that if I said, no, I really don't need to do that today, she would respect that. But I probably get asked away from work things on, 15 times a day. I'll get phone calls, text messages, whatever. I get people texting me pictures of their dog's diarrhea at 6 a.m. I mean, it's ridiculous. And it's like, leave me alone. I don't really care that your dog took a crap right now. I need to rest, because I can't.
I'm not going to call my accountant when I'm out and about at a dinner party and go, hey, by the way, my taxes are due in a week. Can you help me figure this out right now? No. But as veterinarians, we must not love animals if we're not willing. I'm like, I do love animals, but right now I need my time.
I just can't love every animal 24/7. I have to, I have to have that time.
Yes. It doesn't mean we're horrible human beings, but we will go away with that feeling. And I've done it. And I've walked away going, God, I'm such a jerk because I put up that boundary, and I feel terrible about myself that I've put up that boundary. But at the same time, because I'm going, it would have taken me 10 seconds to answer that question, but I needed to put up the boundary. And now I'm going to fester about it for 2 hours that I was a jerk because I didn't do that. Right. So I think if we're looking at things, just have people understand that we are, like Lisa said, we are human beings. We have a profession and we love our profession very, very much. Otherwise, we still wouldn't be doing it after all these years. But in order to keep us doing it all these years, there has to be some boundaries respected, and we ourselves will make ourselves feel guilty. So don't you all worry about doing it. We got it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for getting real with us on that question. I think that's a very important point.
And maybe I'm the only one who does that, but I don't know.
I don't think you are. Yeah. Dr. Emmons, what's your top thing you'd like pet parents should be aware of?
All of those were very much relevant, that we are people, and kind of along those lines, like, have patience with us. We ended up putting a thing on our email of like, we'll get back to you within 24 hours. But if you email me 4 times in a day, even if you call us 4 times in a day, you're taking time away from us doing things by calling repetitively. And then we get frustrated because we're like, we just have not, like, would you rather me be doing the surgery I'm supposed to be doing, or would you rather me be going and filling a prescription request? Like, if that was your dog on the table, would you care more about that or this prescription request that needs to be filled because somebody forgot to renew their meds before their dog needed more or something like that? It's frustrating when we're getting yelled at and we're getting extra burden on our day because of people's A, lack of preparedness, and B, lack of patience. We're just trying to do the best we can every day. And we do it because we love the pets and we want to help the pets, but like, let us help you, please. Just give us the time, and like, sure, give us a reminder if it's been 24 hours or something like that, but just take it easy on us. I swear. My tech wasn't here today because she got screamed at like 3 times, and she was like, I can't talk about being here tonight. She's like, I'm exhausted. We did an awful euthanasia at the end of the day. It's just, there's so many things that affect our emotions throughout the day. And if we could just have one less stress of like one person who's not yelling at us, and one person who's nice, and one person who thanks us, and that makes all the difference.
Agreed. I think that's a great way to end too. So let me please say that thank you very much to all of you after working a very long day, I'm sure, and having many situations you had to deal with today, taking time out of your evening away from your families to have this discussion with us. I am absolutely grateful. This was a lot of great information. I really, really appreciate it. Let's keep the conversation going, whether it's annually, it's quarterly, whatever. N.O.M.V is a wonderful organization. Thanks to all of you for supporting it. Thanks to everybody for listening. Please go to N.O.M.V.org, learn about this organization, donate if you can, support the mission. Let's keep the mental health and wellness of our veterinarians where it needs to be at its utmost top level. And please support them, whether it's a simple thank you, whether it's a review on their Facebook page, whether it's sending their staff some cookies or flowers or something. Just say thank you. Like they said, they are human beings, and we need to all remember that every single day. So thank you to all of you for your time this evening. I really appreciate it. Go spend time with your families, furry and human, and I know we'll all connect again another evening. All right. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Tracy. Nice meeting you too.
Yep. Nice meeting you. I gotta